What's up guys, welcome back to the R&D Garage here at Vintage Air. I'm Billy. Today we're going to be working on a 68 to 72 evaporator installation. So we're going to get some tools and get after it. Alright guys, so in order to install our new stuff, we got to get rid of some stuff. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to take all this out right here, all your compressor, your brackets, because we're not going to use those anymore. And we're going to have to get to this. But in order to get to this casing, we're going to have to jack the car up and drop this inner fender well so we can get to our blower housing on the inside of the fender. So we're going to get some tools and get to taking stuff apart. So this one's pretty much out. Cool. Disconnect these two lines right here. So moving on to our next step, we're gonna go ahead and take these loose from your heater core right here, your heater lines. We're gonna drop those. Then we're gonna have to get under the car, jack it up, pull the wheel off, and drop this inner fender well so we can get to that blower housing. All right, so I'm gonna give you a quick tip. You may start to struggle with this fender well a little bit when you're trying to take it out. If you get the lip past here, that fender well will just pop right out. So make sure you get it right from here. You gotta use a little screwdriver, just be careful. Use a rag, kind of pry it out, and it'll just come right out. So the last component we have to disassemble before we can move into our passenger compartment is gonna be the evaporator case here. Gonna go ahead and remove all the nuts and bolts from around the outside of it, and this whole thing will pop right off and we'll move into the inside. So we're moving into the passenger compartment disassembly. As you can see, we already took our seats out. That's just to make life easy on us. You know, we're gonna be doing a lot of work in here, don't wanna tear a seat or something, so we went ahead and got those out of the way. We're gonna go ahead and start by taking off the glove box door, and then this underneath plenum. So get some tools, get after it. In order to take out the fresh air door from the kick panel, we got 2 screws under the inner fender where the fan motor was. You're gonna have to get those 2 screws out in order to pull the whole assembly out through the kick panel. So go ahead and remove them. Our next step is to go ahead and get the rest of the evaporator case out. So we got 1 screw that attaches it to the defrost ducts we need to take out. Then we're gonna drop the unit down and unplug all the vacuum hoses and plugs that might be there, and then the cables also from the control panel. Continue with our disassembly. We're gonna go ahead and remove the radio. This will give us good access to our control panel. We're gonna remove this trim and our instrument cluster. We're gonna go ahead and detach all the clippings and wiring and the speedometer cable. And we're gonna drop down the steering column, so it'll give us a little bit more access to everything in there. And then we'll remove our defrost duct. Moving on, we're gonna go ahead and prep our firewall cover. We're gonna install 5 quarter 20 by 3/4 and push on rings. As you can see, I already hit 4 here. We're gonna do the last one so you can see it. And we're all set. You wanna leave these 3 holes open because that's where we're gonna mount our evaporator bracket. So let's move to the car. Moving on to our firewall modification. On your vehicle, you're probably still gonna have this lip sticking out around this opening. Gonna need you to flatten that out so it's nice and flush. This way when we put our firewall cover on it, it'll seal up real nice. Next thing we're gonna do, all our mounting holes, we're gonna go ahead and enlarge those. Down here, these 3. We're gonna enlarge those using a 964 drill bit, if it's necessary. The rest of my holes look good, so we're gonna go ahead and move on. Next, we're gonna temporarily install this cover, our firewall cover, onto the firewall. We're gonna go into the passenger compartment. We're gonna take 2 washers and 2 star washer nuts to put on the inside. Go ahead and install your washer and your star washer nut. I'm gonna just use 2 opposite bolts just to secure it loosely because we're gonna have to move that plate around a little bit. Go ahead and install. Okay, go ahead and grab your evaporator bracket and 2 of your full length studs. Go ahead and install them in these 2 holes right here. About 2 turns is good. And go back to the car. Next, take our evaporator bracket. We're gonna go ahead and mount it in there temporarily, just so we can line our holes up. Now go ahead and tighten up those 2 nuts so they're nice and tight. This way our mounting holes won't move. Now that we got everything tightened up, go ahead and remove your evaporator bracket. All right, guys, next we're gonna go ahead and drill our last mounting hole on the firewall. Okay, now that we've drilled our last mounting hole, go inside, take those 2 nuts and washers off, and we're gonna remove the plate from the vehicle. All right, now that we've drilled our last mounting hole, we're gonna go ahead and install our last full-length stud and move back to the car. Next, we're gonna go ahead and mark and drill for the drain tube installation. So from here, we're gonna measure down 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch from this little groove this way. It's gonna be pretty much directly under this mounting hole. You're gonna want to drill only a 5/8 hole. Anything bigger than that, you're gonna have to silicone up around your drain tube. We don't want that. So we wanna have a nice, secure, tight fitting for the hose. Okay, go ahead and apply a bead of silicone around the firewall cover. Then we'll move on to installing it. Okay, now that we have the firewall cover on the firewall, go ahead and loosely put on your washers and nuts. All right, now take your evaporator bracket, go ahead and install it through the firewall. Make sure all your holes are lined up. Once that's in place, go ahead and tighten all the hardware that's on your firewall. Once that's all done, we're gonna go ahead and remove the bracket. We're gonna go ahead and install our heater hard lines. and our evaporator bracket onto our unit. Let's go ahead and undo these caps. Be careful, there's gonna be some pressure in here. So next, we're gonna go ahead and install our upper and lower heater hardlines onto the unit, and then the evaporator bracket. Let's go ahead and undo your caps here. Make sure you get the little rubber insert out of there. Go ahead and lubricate your O-rings. Drop a little oil on those threads. Makes it easier to get them all lined up. Get your backup wrench. Go ahead and slide the bracket over your hard lines. Reinstall your screws. And there you have it. Moving on to the next one. Next, we're gonna go ahead and put our grommets in our kick panel cover and also a fresh air cap. As you see, you got your large grommets here and your 3/8 grommet right here. Same thing, large grommets and small 3/8 grommet right here. All right, moving on. All right, now that we removed the evaporator bracket, go ahead and install some good insulation so our system will work properly. All right, guys, so you're getting ready to do your installation, so you're gonna need some insulation. So we have here at Vintage Air a couple of quality products we can get you set up with. So before we head out to the car, I'm gonna give you a quick heads up on the defrost grill and the defrost duct. So what you're gonna do is, you're gonna take your grill and put it in the opening of your defrost in your dash. From underneath the dash, you're gonna come into it with your defrost duct, like so. Install your two 1032 nuts. Okay. Before you tighten it all the way, you're just gonna have to make sure that your grill's centered in your dash, and then tighten everything up, and then we're done. So now you got the heads up, we're gonna move on to the car and show you how it's done. All right, now we did the passenger side, go ahead and do your driver's side. Next, we're gonna go ahead and install our side hose adapters and our center vent hose adapters. We're gonna be using 1032 star washer nuts. Go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. Next step, go ahead and pull your center louver out of your louver housing. You're gonna install these nylon bushings on each side, just like that. I'm gonna grab our little retaining bracket here with a number 6 screw. Go ahead and tighten it and thread it all the way through. Okay. and then back it out about halfway out. All right, let's move into the car. We're gonna go ahead and install our center louver back into the housing, and on the slide, we're gonna go ahead and install this on the louver housing, and then adjust it to make sure you got enough tension on your louver and tighten your screw. Okay, moving into our wiring portion of our installation. Go ahead and get out of your wiring kit. You're gonna take your heater control valve wiring. We're gonna put it through the 3/8 grommet and your kick panel. Okay, make sure you get your ground loop out. It's the white wire. Okay, pull it through. Leave you some extra wire right there. Gonna have to plug that in later. Move this off to the side for a second. Get your main wiring harness out. Here, we're gonna disconnect your 2 hot leads here off our circuit breaker. Take this off to the side. Now, what I like to do is, since you're gonna have to you won't have to struggle with these wires, I take a little electrical tape and I run the white, the red, and the blue all together. I'll tape them up. Just a little tip, make it easier for you to install it into your kick panel. I cheated, I got one already set up. So we're just gonna go ahead and install all your wiring right here. You're gonna pull this all the way through. Until you get to about here. At the end of this black tape, that's where you're gonna wanna stop, and then we're gonna move into the vehicle. Finished product on the wiring. Okay, now that we're in the vehicle, we're gonna go ahead and run our main harness wiring through our kick panel opening and into the engine compartment. Okay, we're gonna work on running our wiring through our fresh air cap. Just to let you know, when we go to install, you're gonna look here. Here's a little T on the plastic. That tells you which mounting hole it needs to go into, top, going up. So go ahead and grab your heater control valve wiring, put it through the 3/8 grommet. Get that ground loop through. We're gonna run the rest of the main wiring harness through the same grommet. And take your time when you get to those 2 red wires, because you don't want to pop the grommet out. There you go. We'll just get it close to the position, because now we're gonna run hoses. Okay, we're moving into installing our AC hoses and our heater hoses. Just a quick tip real quick. These 2 are gonna be your heater hoses. These 2, this one will be your number 10, this will be your number 6. Just showing you outside of the car so when we get inside, you don't get confused, okay? Next, we're gonna go ahead and apply silicone to the back of our kick panel cover right here. And as you notice, there's a big notch here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna silicone around this area, put a little bit here, and we're gonna install this with our OEM hardware. Then you might wanna just let it tack up a little bit and come back and make sure you fill in this area so you get a nice seal. You don't want any air escaping or any contaminants coming into your car. You have some options where you can mount your relay here. You can either mount it up here and here, anywhere, or you can just attach it right here along with the kick panel. Now we're moving into our evaporator installation. Go ahead and grab your dash bracket, number 8 U-nut. Go ahead and install it onto the dash bracket. Like so. All right, go ahead and grab your evaporator and I'll meet you back at the car. Okay, we're getting ready to install our hoses and AC lines onto our evaporator unit. Make sure you have your hose clamps ready. And what we're also gonna do is we're gonna take out these 2 dash mounting bolts. Keep those to the side, we're gonna need those shortly. I'm gonna take the unit and flip it like this so you have access to your number 6 and your heater hard lines. Go ahead and remove the cap to your expansion valve and the cap to your number 6 AC line. Lubricate your O-ring. Do a little drop on the threads. Go ahead and connect your hose. Make sure you don't pinch the O-rings, that'll cause a leak. Get your backup wrench. Go ahead and tighten your line. Okay, now we're gonna roll the evap up a little bit so you can have better access to your hoses. Okay, get your heater hose, install your hose clamp. Go ahead and tighten your clamp. Now the upper heater hose. We're gonna go ahead and rotate our unit into place. We're gonna line up our studs, put them in through the firewall. You may have a little tension there because of the hoses might be a little too far this way or too far in. So what I'm gonna do is spray a little soapy water just on my hoses right here by the grommets, because we don't want those popping out as you're messing around in there, okay? Once you get it into place, I'll take you to the next step. Go ahead and grab you a number 8 Phillips head screw. Right under here, you're gonna have an OEM hole, okay? I'm gonna put that number 8 screw up, and it's gonna go right into your dash bracket where we installed the U-nut. Go ahead and tighten that up. Now we're gonna connect our number 10 AC hose to the evaporator. Go ahead and take your cap off, lubricate your O-ring. Don't forget to put a drop on the threads on the evaporator. Connect it, tighten it up. Then we're gonna go in with our press tape and cover all these metal parts. Make sure you use 2 wrenches. Make sure you use the backup wrench always. Okay, we're back out here in the engine compartment. What we're gonna do is grab our 1/4 by 3/4. We're gonna replace these 3 studs. Make sure you coat them with a little bit of silicone since we're going from engine compartment to passenger compartment. At this time, don't fully tighten your 3/4 bolts. All right guys, on the leveling, now that you got your unit in, before we tighten up all our hardware, you're gonna take your little level right here. You can use this area right here, do your left and right. On the bottom of the case, you can use the flat edge. Try and get it as close as you can. That'll make sure you have proper drainage on your unit. All right, let's move to the car. Okay, moving on to our drain hose installation. What we're gonna do is we're gonna cut our drain hose at 9.5 inches. Careful not to cut your fingers. We're gonna take our 9.5 inch piece, put our drain elbow in it, like so. And then whatever's left, install on the other side. Now we're gonna go to the firewall, install through the firewall onto your evaporator case. Okay, we're gonna move into our ECU and wiring harness installation. So concentrate right here where all our plugs are. That's where we're going to next. You're gonna notice you have a violet wire and a tan wire. The violet wire is gonna run all the way to your fuse panel, and you're gonna put that on a switched 12-volt circuit. The tan wire is gonna go to your dash back lighting for your control panel. Moving on, go ahead and grab your control panel. Let's get under the dash. All right, now that you got your control panel bolted in place, we're gonna go ahead and connect it to the ECU. All right, we're gonna move into our duct hose routing. Just so we can be clear, I'm gonna show you outside of the vehicle, there's not a lot of room in that car. So these two right here, your 2-inch defrost ducts. This is gonna be your driver's side, this one to your passenger side. Cut it where you need to, put it into place. This one right here, this is gonna go to the passenger side. The right next to it is gonna go to your driver's side. These two upper center ones are gonna go to your center louver. Okay, moving on to our fresh air cap installation. What we're gonna do is slide your fresh air cap back to the firewall. Make sure you don't have a lot of slack in the lines right there. We're gonna install with 2 number 14 sheet metal screws. And then after that, we're gonna go ahead and silicone around the edge so we have a nice seal. Cool, now it's time to hook up our AC hoses. Go ahead and get your number 8, lubricate your O-ring, move the cap on your compressor, then with your service port onto the compressor. Lubricate your other O-ring, move the cap on your condenser hardline. There you go. Now go ahead and tighten your fittings. Okay guys, go ahead and grab your number 10 AC hose. Lubricate that O-ring. Take the cap off your compressor. Drop a little oil on that thread. Makes life easy. Go ahead and install your number 10. So our next step is going to be connecting our number 6 line to our dryer. Before we install that, I want you to take it and put it there in place and look at your core support. I'm going to show you right here. You may have to make a little modification to your core support just to make sure that we're not hitting any part of this number 6 line. Okay, now that you made your modification in your core support, if it was needed, we're gonna go ahead and lubricate your O-ring on your number 6 and connect it to the dryer. Next, we're installing our hardline support bracket. 2 8 clamps. Smaller 8 clamp is gonna go on your number 8. About right there. The larger on your number 6 hose. Take your screw, run it through both 8 clamps. Go ahead and mark. Remove your bracket. Pre-drill those 2 holes, and then we'll install with 2 sheet metal screws. Install your start washer nut and go ahead and tighten the screw. Moving on to our heater control valve installation. We're gonna start with our lower heater core fitting. If you notice, we're using 5/8 hose. That's what's on our units. On your water pump, you may have a 3/4 fitting. So what you're gonna need is you're gonna have to get an adapter from your local auto parts store. It's gonna reduce it from 3/4 to 5/8. We're gonna go ahead and install this to our water pump. All right, now install your lower heater hose to your adapter. All right, we're gonna go ahead and install our upper heater hose to the intake. Now you're gonna notice your intake port is gonna be on the back. So if you don't have a 5/8 adapter on there, make sure you got one. For this install, I'm using a molded hose. It's gonna make it a lot easier. Go ahead and install your heater control valve. Also take note of the direction on the flow. There's a molded arrow on the side of your heater control valve. From here, go ahead and connect your heat control valve plug. Now we're gonna drill a hole and we're gonna connect our ground eyelet to a suitable ground. We're gonna continue with our wiring steps. Okay, in order to reach all our wiring to the battery, we're gonna have to splice this wire into these 2. So what we're gonna do is, we're gonna go ahead and snip these off. We're gonna strip them and run them together. Make sure you remember your heat shrink. Now that that's all set, what we're gonna wanna do is remove the circuit breaker. We're gonna mount this as close as we can to the battery. Remember, the copper side goes to your battery. This will continue on your wiring. Now we spliced our wires together. What I did is I used a couple of tie wraps and I've taken the whole harness and ran it along the number 6 toward the core support. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna put on our spade terminal connector right here on the blue wire. That's gonna go to your binary switch. Go ahead and plug that in. Next, we're gonna go ahead and attach our compressor lead from the bullet terminal on the compressor. We're gonna run this wire along the number 8 AC hose. Now that we routed our positive and negative wires through the core support over to our battery compartment, we're gonna go ahead and find a nice spot for our circuit breaker. Go ahead and mark and drill your holes and mount it, and then we'll move on to putting on the hot lead and continue into the battery. We have our circuit breaker mounted. In your kit, you're gonna have 2 eyelets, smaller, bigger. The smaller one is gonna go to our circuit breaker. Since you're gonna have extra wire, we're just gonna measure out what you need, cut off the rest, and we'll use this to attach the other side of the circuit breaker to the battery. All right, guys, let's go ahead and install our glove box. So we moved into our final steps, replaced all our previously removed parts, tie wrapped everything up to make it nice and neat. Go ahead and get your AC serviced by a certified technician. This concludes our evaporator installation on your GTO. If you have any problem with any kind of parts or anything from your system, go ahead and call our sales guys. They're very knowledgeable, can help you out with anything you need. If you have any problems with your installation, make sure you call our tech team.